Wilkerson Intermediate School was founded in 1974 in the Woodlands, Texas. Its namesake was W. D. Wilkerson, who had served as Conroe Independent School District Superintendent for 18 years. Hi, my name is Drew Beeson, and I am making this video to create awareness of a situation that happened at Wilkerson Intermediate School, starting after its inception in 1974 and going into the early 1980s. As previously mentioned, Wilkerson Intermediate School was a brand new school in a brand new community called the Woodlands, Texas. The first village in the Woodlands was called Grogan's Mill, and this came after the naming of the Grosgrain Lumber Company that formerly owned and operated the land and had a mill on the property. The opening of this village was commemorated with a flag-raising ceremony and celebrated appearance by William Shatner. The site of the Grogan sawmill, as shown here in this early photo from the 1900s, will become relevant in this story, as its former location was just a short distance away from where Wilkerson Intermediate was built. The following comes from an article titled, "Health Issues Concern Former Students," as originally published on the Houston Chronicle online edition on June 7, 2014, and was also featured in the Woodlands Villager and the Woodlands News. Cynthia Hancock had been battling illness for much of her adult life. Sicknesses she believes is directly related to exposure to chemicals or waste that affected numerous students at Wilkerson Intermediate School in the Woodlands in the 1970s and the early 1980s. Hancock's medical conditions are similar to more than 100 former students found by Chuck Foreman, a 1986 Oak Ridge High School graduate, as he and many friends he believed have battled lifelong illnesses associated with the strong odor that permeated throughout the school more than 30 years ago. Foreman's plight now is to find the cause of these debilitating and possibly deadly illnesses and determine whether students and residents in the area along Sawmill Road still could be affected by it. Multiple soil and air sample tests were performed at the school in the early 1980s due to the foul odor inside the school building, which penetrated clothing and hair, leaving the students with a lasting smell once the school let out. Students were removed from the campus and attended another school while remediation work was performed, including sealing the concrete, replacing the carpet, and repainting the walls. However, no specific cause of the potent odor or symptoms was ever determined. Illnesses and symptoms. When Hancock attended Wilkerson in the early 1980s, she and other students felt nauseous, suffered severe headaches, and walked around with a chemical smell on their clothes and hair. "I remember when I was attending Wilkerson, there was a bad smell and I would go home feeling sick and had a bad headache," said Hancock, who later attended Oak Ridge Junior High and Oak Ridge High School. Hancock, now 46, said she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in 2001 and 2 months later learned she had Bell's palsy, which results in paralysis or weakness of the muscles on one side of the face due to nerve damage. It is generally related to the herpes virus or cold sores. She suffered from Bell's palsy for around 3 months. Then 2 years ago, Hancock was diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer and had 3 surgeries to remove the cancer. "The MS is in my spine and I shake very bad. It has also done damage to my sight and how I walk," Hancock said. "I have a caretaker who helps me every week to go food shopping and clean. I no longer can drive." Many others who attended Wilkerson in the 1970s and early 80s have endured similar illnesses. Michelle Christner and her twin sister Melanie were in 6th grade when all the commotion hit about the school, she said. "The school had a strong odor all the time. I can still smell the vile odor as I remember attending there," Christner said. "My twin and I always had headaches, sinus problems, weakness, and felt nauseous." Their parents took them to the doctor, and Melanie, who died in a car accident in 2000, had phenol poisoning in her system, Christner said. "I had a very bad reaction from the phenol poison with my skin coming off my hands and feet," Christner said. "I remember taking a shower. I looked at my hands and my skin was peeling off. The skin on my feet peeled also. Today her fingers are still very sensitive. She can't wear fingernail polish, touch certain kinds of paper or smooth items without cringing and having pain shoot through her hands," she said. "My hands shake often and I still have bad headaches. I don't go to the doctor because I just can't afford it," Christner said. Foreman, now a private investigator in the Austin area, has collected 170 surveys and documented a spreadsheet of the individuals, both males and females, They are mostly females between the ages of 40 and 75 who claim to have lupus, multiple sclerosis, various forms of cancers, Graves' disease, infertility, autoimmune diseases, or have died young. One common denominator that all the sick individuals have is that they lived in the Woodlands area in the 1970s and attended or worked at Wilkerson Intermediate between 1974 and 1982, Foreman said. Foreman's main question is whether it was the soil or carpet that allegedly caused the health problems. According to documents supplied to the Courier by Conroe ISD, April 11th, Wilkerson Intermediate had an odor problem present, apparently since the initial opening of the facility. I can remember teachers complaining of bad headaches and feeling ill, and teachers' lounge being closed due to strange black ooze coming out through the carpet and along the walls, Christner said. The administrators had the doors taped off, but me, Melanie, and one of my friends stuck our heads inside the lounge and saw wet-looking black stuff along the walls. Parent Patsy Brand addressed the Conroe ISD board about the issue on November 17, 1981. She told the board, "Parents are greatly concerned regarding the apparent potential health hazard at Wilkerson School." Brand reported that the group came together in response to complaints concerning a strong odor and the apparent connection of this odor with health-related chronic symptoms of many Wilkerson students. The odor penetrates the skin, hair, clothing, and books, and we believe it's directly related to symptoms experienced by the children. Such symptoms include headaches, nausea, vomiting, pallor, lethargic behavior, stomach cramps, appetite loss, and unusual behavior changes. Students and teachers were subsequently removed from the school, and classes were held at the Oak Ridge High School junior high while cleanup work was conducted. The CISD contracted Spectrix Laboratory in Houston to collect and analyze air, soil, and building material samples from Wilkerson. On November 6, 1981, Brand received an interim report with Spectrix's result regarding the collected and analyzed samples. At that time, the CISD Director of Planning and Construction indicated that there was phenol present in the soil sample in a higher concentration than that found in the inside air samples at Wilkerson. Testing of the carpeting was also made for phenols, the document said. The cleanup including sealing the concrete, replacing the carpet, and repainting the walls. Students returned to Wilkerson the following year. Some of the issues returned. I don't remember any other health issues after I left the school until I was older, Hardridge said. From what Brand remembers, the problem was that the soil was not tested prior to the construction of Wilkerson, she said. There was a sawmill near there. People dumped in the woods because it was just woods then, Brand said. During the Wilkerson cleanup, they removed the soil, and I think they dug up the floor of the school. The school district was to provide a test once a year and was to continue testing each year, but I never received one. Foreman and those affected believe the low-lying area where Wilkerson was built possibly absorbed chemicals into the soil as a result of the flood runoff from dunk ponds at the area sawmill treatment locations where wood was chemically treated in the lumber-rich area or from illegal dumping in the region. Foreman said the soil underneath Wilkerson Intermediate is possibly contaminated by the old Grogan Cochran sawmill that was located at Tamarack Park off the Woodlands Parkway. He believes the flood runoff could have taken the chemicals all the way to the Wilkerson Intermediate area near Grogan's Mill Road and Sawmill Road. The wood-preserving industry pressure treats wood with chemicals that protect against insects and fungus, according to a document, Cleaning Up Contaminated Wood Treatment Sites, published by Princeton University. Just a few preserving chemicals have been widely used by the industry. The oldest preservative process treats wood with creosote, a tarry liquid derived from coal. Pentrachlorphenol, PCP, became widely used as a preservative after 1950, although its purchase and use is now restricted. According to the CDC, people may be exposed to phenol if they live near landfills or hazardous waste sites that contain phenol or near facilities manufacturing phenol. Low levels of phenol can be present in air and drinking water, some foods from smoking or inhaling secondhand smoke. Phenol is both a manufactured chemical and a natural substance, and it has a distinct odor that is sickeningly sweet and tarry, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You can taste and smell phenol at levels lower than those that are associated with harmful effects. The effects phenol has on children include vomiting and lethargy. Phenol has caused minor birth defects and low birth weight in animals, generally at exposure levels that were also toxic to the pregnant mothers. The International Agency for Research on Cancer and the Environmental Protection Agency have determined that phenol is not classifiable as to its carcinogenity to humans. However, the CDC said that the detection of phenol and or its metabolites that is measured in urine cannot be used to predict the kind of health effects that might develop from the exposure. We wanted to get the school fixed, said Brand, and for the kids to go back to school, she said. If you saw one of the Wilkerson students at the grocery store or after school, the smell would knock you over. You'd think it's absorbed in their skin. What's always appalled me was that the teachers continued working in the school and no one said anything to my knowledge. Much of the mindset at the time was that this is what Wilkerson smells like. They just got used to it, Brand said. I don't recall that CISD offered to do anything for testing the children. During that time, it was all-consuming, just a daily issue for us. We didn't want to drop the ball until it was resolved. There was no way to know if 10 to 20 years down the road if children would suffer. As for Foreman, he is just trying to pick up the ball where it was dropped in order to find answers for his friends and others suffering from these illnesses, possibly related to the mysterious odor at Wilkerson more than 4 decades ago. So that's the end of the article that was written 9 years ago. I altered the end to make it from 3 decades to 4 decades because the article now is almost 10 years old. But I'm very grateful that that article is out there for the public to read. It was written by Kim Sutton, so I'm glad that's out there. But the way I became involved in this is, I may have mentioned before, both of my sisters attended Wilkerson Intermediate. One of my sisters gave birth to a child with cerebral palsy. I don't know if that's caused by her attending Wilkerson. It may not be, but I can tell you for sure that I truly believe that some of the students that went to Wilkerson did get illnesses from attending that school, from the phenol poisoning. If it was phenol, I believe it was, because of that tarry smell that phenol is described as. I didn't wind up attending Wilkerson because I went to Catholic school when I should have gone into Wilkerson growing up in Oak Ridge North, which of course is across from the Woodlands, Texas. But one case that hit me that I absolutely will always believe was caused by Wilkerson was that of Chris Isinger. And here's a picture of Chris back from 1979. Chris was my cousin's best friend all through junior high and high school and beyond. And I can remember about 15 years ago that Chris was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And I was just stunned. And when I heard that tragic news, I immediately attributed it to him attending Wilkerson Intermediate School. And I know Chris also believes that his MS was from attending Wilkerson. He has none of it in his family. He has no other reason why he came down with MS, which is very debilitating. It's definitely altered his life quite a bit. He experiences lots of fatigue that's kind of hallmark with MS. Sometimes his speech is slurred, but Chris is hanging in there, fortunately. He's got 2 grown children, a beautiful wife. He married his high school sweetheart. And here's a picture, the more modern picture of Chris. And I always believed that Chris's MS was caused by Wilkerson. And later on, Chris got raised a money-raising team called Team Iceman. That's Chris's nickname. And it was an MS-150 team, and that's a bicycle-sponsored team where they ride their bicycles from Houston up to the Austin, Texas area and raise money for MS research. So that's my connection to it. My 2 sisters going there, and of course, Chris. I know Chris well, being my cousin's best friend. And hearing all the other stories about these students that became affected after attending Wilkerson. I just heard of so many. I was in contact with Chuck Foreman 2 or 3 years ago. I was thinking about writing a book about the whole Wilkerson case, but got so busy with the 9-to-5 job and these other books that I wrote, which I know a lot of you are already familiar with. But I wanted to get something done on this, and this is the first part of that, was doing this documentary. So if you're watching this, please tune in on Sunday evening, where I'm going to do an interview with Mark Barbary. And Mark is kind of become the clearinghouse for a lot of the former Wilkerson students. And he's a former Wilkerson student himself. And he became the spearhead after after Chuck, did a heavy dive into this whole thing, Mark has been the one that the former students contact about a lot of their health issues. And Mark has been really great about, updating people on his Facebook site and posting different documents that he's been able to get from the state and CISD and from his different sources. And he's been great about sharing this stuff. So I'm going to have a live discussion with Mark on Sunday evening. So if you're watching this in the future, please go look for that video because it would probably already be out. And today's date is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. And the live interview with Mark Barbary will be on August 20th of 2023. So definitely go watch that video if you haven't already. You may have watched that one and came over to watch this one. So now I'm going to show a little segment that I filmed in front of the actual Wilkerson Intermediate School. So you can see Wilkerson Intermediate behind me, and this is where it all started sometime in the late 70s. Of course, the school started to fill up, I think in 1975 or 6, after it was ready to open. I don't remember the official year that it was open. My sisters both went to this school. They're both older than me, and they were separated by, I believe, 2 grades, but they both attended Wilkerson Intermediate. And the thing you remember most about it was this permeating, tarry-like smell that when you walked into the school in the mid to the late 1970s, this smell would literally knock you down. It was so strong, and it was an offensive odor, and you immediately knew something was wrong. It just felt like it was in the carpet, in the walls. It attached to your clothes. I remember when my sisters got home from school, they would just reek of this smell, and I'll never forget the smell till this day. I can remember how they smelled like. And if you went to school here for a while, for weeks or a month, you started getting used to it because you would smell it every day, so you didn't know how bad it was. But for people that weren't there all day, like your parents or your siblings that didn't go there, they immediately knew when you were home, because when they stepped in the door, they would just reek of this tarry-like smell, a chemical type smell. And that is what's highly believed to have caused all these medical problems that started coming out from students that attended Wilkerson in the mid 80s through the 90s and to this day. I think most of them started coming out about around into the 90s, 2000s, when a lot of people that attended Wilkerson were getting things, autoimmune diseases, a lot of multiple sclerosis. My cousin's best friend attended Wilkerson, and he got MS. He has no idea why. None of his siblings have it, but he got MS. Lots of people got MS. Cynthia Hancock, and we'll talk about her a little more in this video, unfortunately got MS. She fully believed it was from attending Wilkerson, and just, and was creating this awful smell that was coming out of this school behind me. And we'll walk around a little bit more and show some of this. So this is the main entry of Wilkerson Intermediate School, and this was 5th and 6th grades before you would enter junior high. And if you went to Wilkerson, you would go to a Knox Junior High, which is just a little bit more down this road. It's located on Sawmill Road. But this is where, the parents would drop you off. I think the buses went somewhere else. I don't recall if the buses would drop the kids off here. That might have been towards the back. But this is, where your parents would drop you off if they were taking you, or carpooled or something like that. But that's the main entry of Wilkerson. And one of my distinct memories was coming here with my mother to register one of my sisters, and I walked through these 2 doors with my mom, and I can never forget that smell that hit me as soon as I walked through those doors. It was this tarry, awful, putrid smell. I don't know, I would say it was like death. I never really smelled a dead body, but I would imagine it'd be something akin to that. It would just literally knock you down, but it had this chemical type aspect to it, and it would just be like, not a faint smell, strong. Like it would be, if you weren't used to it, it would immediately get your attention. I remember asking my mother, what is that? And she had no idea, but all the kids would smell like that. They would come home reeking of it.